we're going to be presenting the Ardex TLT shower system. Joining me today is Mr. Mark Panine. Mark is the head of our Tile and Stone Technical Services, and my counterpart, Mr. Tim Aheimer, is also the Field Marketing Specialist for Ardex Tile and Stone. So with any installation, it's critical to check the substrate first. So the first thing that Mark's going to do is put a level on it. Now, why that's important with our shower system is because the pitch is built into our pan. So we want to make sure that the substrate is level so that we have proper pitch in our pan, or proper drainage. Mark, how are we looking?
Good.
Pretty good? All righty. So the first thing we're going to do is attach our drain hub assembly. So inside of our kit, we're going to give you several options depending on what drain assembly you have present. So here we have a typical two-piece clamping drain. So what Mark's going to do is take the top of that two-piece clamping drain off, and we'll remove that and discard it. Now, he's going to simply run a bead of CA20P on our adapter flange. So the adapter flange right here will then be bolted down to the surface of the drain. As an option, if you have a typical 2-inch stub out, like just a 2-inch piece of ABS or PVC coming out of the floor, we give you a connect-type connector in the kit as well. The advantage of a connect-type connector is that it does not require any glue for its assembly. So this is a simple push-fit connection that is suitable for drain pipes. So this allows you to do a blind drain connection once the pan's installed. So Mark has gone ahead and ran his bead of CA20P around that hub adapter, that drain adapter, and now he's simply just bolting that adapter back down to the two-piece clamping drain. Now, one thing I like to do when I've gotten to this point is I like to test fit the pan into place, just to make sure things are going to fit well. So you notice we've got a little protector right here, and what that does is, just in case you don't lose any screws or nothing falls down the drain, we give you that. You looking good and centered, guys? Nice. So now we're ready to install our pan. So for the pan installation, here we're using Ardex X5. We can use any one of our polymer modified mortars. Mark is going to comb out the substrate. He's using a 1/4 by 3/8 trowel. And Tim is going to comb out the back of the pan, using again a 1/4 by 3/8 trowel. So while the guys are combing out the thin side on the pan, we'll talk about some of the advantages of the Ardex TLT system. So with the pan itself, we are able to accommodate any size format tile, whether that be large or small. So we don't have any restrictions on how small the tile can be over top of our pan. We also have the ability to do custom pan sizes and shapes, as well as custom drain locations. So the advantage to that is that if you need an irregular shape, and oftentimes I use the Ardex logo as an example, I could do a shower pan in the shape of the Ardex logo, and I could put that drain in the A, the drain in the D, or the drain in the X, and we would still have a perfectly level perimeter. The lead time on custom pans is typically about 2 weeks. It's a very easy process to simply draw out on our custom order form, which is available on the Ardex Americas website. Draw out the dimensions starting from the center point of the drain, and once that has been confirmed, about 2 weeks later, that pan shows up to your front door. We also have standard size pans ranging in a variety of sizes from 36 by 36 all the way up to 3 by 5s, 4 by 5s, all your different typical sizes. We also have linear drains as well as center point drains like we're showing here. And we also have a variety of different drain finishes. So chrome and satin nickel, flat black, which is really popular right now. So what both Tim and Mark have done is they've made sure that they combed their thin set both going the same direction. Tim is going to apply the hub adapter. So this goes right onto the bottom side of the pan. There we go. And what Mark is doing is Mark is just using a little bit of soapy water because now we're going to push fit and blind connect our pan to our drain assembly. Better? So one place to pay attention is as they place the pan, I like to support right around the drain assembly so that all the force as it's pushed, there we go, right down into place, and he supports that drain. As you can see, the whole pan installation goes incredibly fast. Are you going to go wallboard or curb next, Mark?
I'm going to go
wallboard. So, once our pan is down, are you going to put protection?
I'm going to walls on.
And then put it in, okay? So what Mark is doing right now is applying a bead of CA20P. CA20P is a modified silane adhesive, construction adhesive. And so he's applying a bead of that right where our wall board is going to meet the shower pan. Once he's got that done, now we're ready to embed the building panel directly into the CA20P. So he pushes it against the wall, and then he brings it down nice and tight to the pan. So for our wall board, fastening it to the stud, to the framing, we're going to use washers that he's pushing into place now, and then it's just a screw that'll fasten it in. Once we have our fasteners in place, then we'll go back over top of those with sealant or banding. Our wall board or building panels are available in a variety of thicknesses, everything from an 1/8 inch, 1/2 inch, all the way up to 2 inches thick. So building custom benches and different things out of the 2-inch builder board is actually pretty cool. I've done some really cool bench shapes and done some unique benches, done some freestanding benches, and when built out of the 2-inch board, they're actually structural. So Mark's just going to throw a couple of fasteners in here to hold it. Typically, when we're putting in the wall board, we want a fastener every 12 inches, and we'll just repeat that pattern across the entire board. So Mark's going to go ahead and move on to the adjacent wall panel now. Again, running a bead of CA20P. The nice thing about CA20P is that being a modified silane adhesive, it actually is a moisture cure product. So water actually makes it cure faster. So we can flood test this faster than a normal type application. So Mark also ran CA20P at the wallboard, where the wallboard or builder board met each other. And then again, we'll throw in our fasteners. So you notice on the wall that Mark already installed, we have a cutout. So next, we're actually going to be installing our niche. So we have 3 different size niches available. They also have shelves in them. You'll be able to see that as soon as they pull it out. The cool thing with the shelf is that you don't have to use it, or you can adjust wherever it goes in there so that it fits your tile layout. Now, a lot of times for me personally, when I'm installing a shower system, the advantage of using a pre-made niche is that you can actually set your couple rows of tile and figure out exactly what a full tile layout would be, and then cut your niche in place after you've got all the wallboard up. So Mark's going to do a dry fit, just make sure everything fits nice. Looking good, Mark? Alrighty. So as he pulls that niche out, he's going to again use that Ardex CA20P, run a bead of sealant all the way around it. So the CA20P is going to both hold the niche in place as well as seal that seam all the way around it. The niches are designed to fit between standard 16-inch framing and fit perfectly between that, which is typical in most construction. So next, I believe Mark will run a fastener. Yep. So Mark's running a fastener, just securing that wall board and the niche into place. Again, typically we would have those fasteners about every 12 inches. We're going to go ahead and run some more sealant and then install our final board above. So we do have some options as we go to start talking about our banding. We can use the sealant for sealing our seams and sealing all the screw holes as well. We can also use the Ardex banding, the TLT banding, to seal those as well. There we go. Ready to put in that final board. So if he's got a little bit of gap there, he's just going to go ahead and fill that up with the CA20P. Just like that. While they're wrapping that up, I will talk about the pipe collars and drain collars. So we do have these available. Anywhere that you have the plumbing penetrations, you simply fit the plumbing penetration over that, and then we would use thin set to attach that. And what that does is create a watertight seal so that we have our entire shower is watertight. Now for the valve, we also have a piece that gets thin setted into place. What this does is keep any water from leaking inside the wall. In our mock-up here, we don't have any valves. It's not an actual shower. No one's going to be using it. But we do have those pieces available. We also have inside and outside corners and our TLT banding as well. So the banding is both waterproofing and reinforcing. So what Mark has done is he's applied sealant over top of his seam now, and he'll just use a plastic taping knife and strike that off. He's also going over top the washers and fasteners so that those are completely sealed and now they're watertight. As you can see, that part's pretty easy. they'll go ahead and attach their last panel, and then we'll go on to finishing our waterproofing around our pan. So the advantages of this system over a, say, topically applied waterproof system, the board itself is waterproof. So once this is completely assembled, you have the entire shower is waterproof. It's also covered by the Ardex System 1 warranty. So when used in conjunction with Ardex mortars and grouts, we offer a complete warranty that covers everything. So next, Mark is going to be installing the curb. We're just going to use a little bit of thin set. He's going to comb that out onto the substrate. And he's going to run a Beta CA20P where the curb meets the pan edge, as you can see. Now when Mark places the curb into place, he's going to slide it back and forth, and at this point he can also tip that curb just a little bit if you want to get drainage towards your drain. You can actually pitch the top of that curb a little. Go to banding. So the next step is to actually waterproof our junction between the wall board and our pan. So for this, we're going to use the Ardex TLT banding, which Tim has ready. And we have pre-made, if I can see that for half a sec, we also have pre-made inside and outside corners. This is really nice because you can just use these in the corners and you don't have to like cut the banding or anything like that. We also have outside corners, so we can use this at the top of the curb. That'll make the outside corner connection. So you'll notice Mark changed his trowel. Here he's just using a small V-notch trowel, 3/16 V-notch, combing out his mortar. Now he's using a plastic putty knife. I like to use the plastic putty knives as opposed to a margin trowel. That way we don't take a chance of accidentally cutting or reinforcing. So then he's going to go back over top of that, and now he'll apply his banding all the way down. And what that does is reinforces and ties our wall board into the pan so that there's no leaks, and also keeps that wall board so that it doesn't accidentally get kicked or knocked loose. So Mark has gone ahead and pre-cut the banding so that it fits. He's also creased it so that it sits nice and perfect in the 90 degree of that change of plane. And he's just using, again, that plastic putty knife to squeeze out any excess mortar. And that ensures that that banding sits nice and flat and doesn't affect how the tile installation goes as we move on to tile installation later. So Mark's just going to go ahead and take care of the banding on the other side of the pan. Now typically we would also have a curb here in the front, and we would run that banding all the way around the perimeter of our drain. We've left the curb off in the front just so you guys can see what's going on. So we also have the ability with our custom pans, because we have that ability to do custom pans, we can also do barrier-free pans. So if you tell us the height that you have, we can actually make a custom pan based on the elevation you have. David, got a question? So David's question is, directional troweling, does that matter with the banding? So my opinion is I'm always going to follow industry guidelines which say that we should always directional trowel. And the reason for that is it required with banding? Probably not. Is it a good idea and muscle memory to always do it? That's what I do. So anytime I'm troweling, I'm always, directional troweling means all the lines go in one direction. We're not doing swirling, we're not changing it up, because what can happen in that situation is you can actually get air trapped in there. And if you do directional troweling, even with the banding, it allows you to smooth it out, and that it keeps air bubbles from possibly happening underneath your banding. So it's a good move, and it's just good muscle memory. So it's what I do every time. It's a good question. Any other questions come up? No? Okay. So what Mark is moving on to now is this connection in our change of plane on our building panels. So on the wall, where we're changing from our right wall to our left wall, we are going to use the banding on that application as well. So for the screw hole, we could do banding again, or the Ardex CA20P. So you have options there depending on what you have available and your personal preference. I personally like sealant over the seams and over the screw holes. There's less buildup that then interferes with my tile installation. Tim, can I see that banding for a sec? So you can see here, they've already creased the banding, and what that does is it helps it hold that 90-degree angle, and that way we know we sit perfectly centered into our change of plane. So now, Mark. So we do run the CA20P between the two building panels, and then the banding over top of it is a reinforcing, just in case there's any movement. Because a lot of times with wood structures, there's movements in houses, and if it was just that sealant between them, it could potentially leak, and so the banding is actually reinforcing. So we do recommend that you do both the sealant where the board meets the board, and then band over top of it just for the corner. If it's not the corner, so say like this joint right here, we can just do sealant over top of that. Tim, maybe you can throw some sealant on that one? So you're saying like there between the two boards? Yes. So you have the option there. If you wanted to just do banding, you could. I find the sealant a little bit easier because it's a little flatter, so it doesn't interfere with my tile installation as we get to that later on. Now I would typically apply a little bit wider band than that. I usually like to look for a 1-inch band of sealant right directly over top of this seam. So you can see Mark is working on our curb here. He went ahead and used that pre-made outside corner. He applied that, and again we would continue our banding all the way around the perimeter of the pan. So now we're ready to actually install the drain assembly. Now, one thing that I think is pretty cool about the design of our drain assembly is that it's a double-threaded hub. So it spins in and then has another set of threads so that you can adjust your height and then square up the drain so that your drain sits square and is aligned with your tile installation. Another thing that's built into our drain design is we actually have weep holes or a weep channel built in there so that any water that comes down that pan can go through the weep channels that are built into the drain, and that water is go ahead and directed down the drain. So again, for drain finishes, we have a variety of different colors and several different styles. We call this the punch drain. We also have a linear design and we have a scatter design. We have several different colors: flat black, satin. This is the chrome. And what Mark is doing here, he's just doing a couple dots of CA20P just to hold that drain assembly into place. There we go. We're ready for tile. Well, once our thin set dries, we'd be ready for tile. That pretty much wraps it up for our installation. Any other questions? What do you got? So the turnaround time, so the question is, what's the turnaround time when we're ready for tile or ready for a flood test? So, because a lot of jurisdictions are going to require a flood test or could potentially. So that's going to be determined on our mortar. So we have mortars that you could flood test this, or options that you could flood test this in as little as 4 hours. So once your flood test was done and approved, you're ready for tile, or if a flood test is not required in your jurisdiction, 4 hours would be the shortest. You had a question? Tape around?
Yeah, just around it.
There's no addition. So the question is there additional tape required? The drain assembly is built into the pan, so nothing additional is required there. All we have to do is thread in the drain, and we're done. Adjust the height and adjust the orientation so it's straight with our tile. We're ready to go. It's actually really easy. David, question? So the question is, from order of operation, does it matter how we do the banding and how it overlaps? So my personal opinion is to always shingle. So I always want to start lower so that anything coming down is overlapping over top, just like you would do roofing, so that any water doesn't have an edge to get caught on. So I would do it in the same fashion that they've done here, where I run my lower banding first and then work my way up. And that just prevents any lip or anything that water could potentially work on and work its way under. What you got, Mike? Yeah, so the question is, do we have the ability to do a recessed application or a curbless application, right? So you have a smooth transition, a step down. That's the beauty of doing these type of shower systems. So I personally haven't ever run into an application of a step-down shower, but that to me, using the building panels, would be very easy to achieve that and still have a waterproof application. So absolutely. Yes, and that's where we have those different options for the final drain connection. So he's saying even with the drain, are we going to be able to do that? And that all is going to be determined on what drain assembly is there or what the plumber has left stubbed out for you. So a lot of times in that application, that's probably a renovation and new construction as well. Okay, and you do them with mud. And what do the plumbers usually leave you for a drain connection? They have the drain there. So we could use our system in that application as well. Yeah. It's a quarter to a foot. And that's why leveling, making sure that the substrate's level first, because if it wasn't, then our pan wouldn't drain properly. So having a level substrate is very critical. And if it's minor, some of that leveling can also be done with the thin set as you place the pan. Like if it was minor, just check it with a level. Make sure everything's looking good. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Any final questions? Alrighty. I think he's going to come around and do the drawing.